So I started in 2008 with my novice team, Deloitte, and Brendan Lamb was the coach at the time. And then at the time, in 2008, he was with Ripple. And then he would always talk about Ripple and be like, oh, watch my adult team, compete on Saturday and Sunday. Like, come back on Sunday to watch us. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then I did it at did novice again for 2009. That was the only name that I knew in terms of a adult team. So that at the end of 2009, after TI, in January 2010, when the new season was starting, I was like, oh, let me look into a team. Oh, I know Ripple Effect. So I joined and I went to their meet and greet and all that stuff. And the first practice, and I came here and got to the lake. And I saw Brendan standing on the other side,
Paddlers, are you ready for Ripple Effect?
Hey everybody, I'm your host Brian.
Hey, I'm Shao.
And today we have very special guests from Ripple Effect, Eddie and Tony.
I'm Eddie. I joined Ripple in 2010 and I'm currently Ripple's head coach.
And I'm Tony. I also joined in 2010. And I'm currently one of the co-team managers and one of the coaches on the coaching staff. When we joined in 2010, there was a huge influx to the team. I think they did a really good job recruiting, like the coaches and team managers at the time, and we had a good at least 20 people join, like new people. So I think for us being newbies, it really created a community that we can relate to. Because we all started together, we all learned together, took baby steps, and got introduced to the sport and all. And I thought it was really cool because we would always encourage each other, and and that kind of was contagious. Like we would come out together and we would do things together. And at the time, the coaches were like, oh, who wants to paddle more, who wants to be more competitive and learn more, and all of us like raised our hands and were like, yeah, we'll come to every single practice. And it was just a good group of people that kind of grew together, and I think that's really helpful in terms of getting us hooked and getting us continue to be motivated to keep going with the team.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is like I remember always just chatting online about technique stuff.
Oh yeah.
It was like, oh, Sume said this. I have no idea what she's talking about. Like, do you get it? Yeah. And just to have someone to talk to that you can kind of feel is on the same level, because I know as a newbie it's a little bit intimidating to talk to coaches or even like veterans on the team sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so to talk to other people that whether they get it or not, it's just someone to kind of share your newbiness with, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing that because we came from there, we are very aware of it when new people come to the team, so we always try to make sure they feel welcome, things like that. But I think to answer your question about what made us stay versus like some of the people that have left since our time, because when we first started, that crew, we pretty much had a third boat, and the year before Ripple didn't have a third boat. And a lot of people that still love to paddle, but things in life get in the way. Like they change jobs, they move away. A lot of people end up getting married, having kids. I think that's like usually a pretty big one. Mm-hmm. To get people to stop coming out. But I think, at least I can't speak for Tony, but like for myself, it's just the love of the team is what really drives it. It's like, I think any coach will know you have those days where it's like, why do I do this? And if you don't have that strong foundation of understanding why, and really caring about the team and caring about like what really matters about the team to you, mm-hmm. It's really hard to kind of stay in. Even the people that do leave, I always talk to them about, hey, you ever want to come back for a race? Let me know. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of them are like, I do miss it, but I just don't have the time and things like that.
That's awesome. So because what I wonder a lot is when you do have those times where you are the third place in B division, but then yet your team wanted to get really competitive, how do you balance, like, some people are recreational and then some people are really competitive, and how did you guys find sort of that critical mass so that most of the team or enough of the team really want to be competitive? How did that happen where you guys went from most people are like, it's okay to come in hungover versus like, hey, that might not really be ideal if we want to be competitive. Hello. How did that transition happen for you guys?
Yeah, I think it really happened in 2010, like when we first joined, because a few of our coaches like Aaron, Francis, and Christine, Sume, a bunch of them had a lot of good ideas, and they wanted to bring the team to the next level. And at the same time, you can't just throw everything at the team at once. They're not gonna accept it, right? So they made things fun and challenging at the same time. So we brought out, they did these dynamic warm-ups or dynamic stretches and stuff. So they were, weren't super difficult, but they allowed everyone to do it together. And then they introduced land training, like an hour before, we got on the water. And they made those workouts fun. Like they were like boot camp style workouts. And, we had music and we did it in big groups and stuff like that. So I think, just creating the right environment and the right delivery of things, I think was really helpful. So as more and more people came out to these extra things, we naturally just got stronger, right? And then people saw results, right? People said, oh yeah, I feel better about myself. Or then when we do like fitness tests and time trials, people saw improvements. So I think that just was like a snowball effect, it just continued to grow and grow and grow. So I think that's really how it started. Yeah.
I think what you said about fitness tests was a big one because fitness tests started our year.
Right.
And so in the past, I know a lot of teams, they roster kind of based on seniority. And then it was either 2010 or 2011, they started fitness tests to kind of gauge everyone. And we would do canoe time trials. And it's not the most ideal, but, it's better than nothing to kind of understand how well someone can pull water, things like that. And I think that really helped, like, kind of separate some of the people and really understand, like, who, not just, like, who had the drive, but who had the ability to really, like, do well on the water. But I think to answer your question about, like, how do we kind of separate, like, I think for the longest time we had maybe 10 to 16 people that were really competitive, like, put everything into it, but it was really hard to always fill a full boat. And it wasn't until we kept recruiting and, like, it was more a balance of retaining and recruiting at the same time, to trying to get the talent that we wanted, as well as building up who we already had. And I think for the longest time, I think one of the proud things about Ripple is we have a lot of people that join our team with no experience, and a lot of them have ended up on our A boat since then. And so, like, we really, I think it's something that I'm proud of in terms of being able to build people up within the team and kind of see them grow, whether they're adults or younger.
And I think one of the things that the coaches did at the time was they invested in machine, like the erg machine. I think that was really big. I don't know if maybe we were one of the first teams to actually own an erg.
I think so.
Yeah. So having that as a resource really helped. Whether using it during training or using it during fitness tests and things like that, and having that additional off-water option was something that I think really saw some improvements in people.
And you know what Henry G said? The ripple effect worked. Everybody has an erg now.
So then you guys were able to kind of establish like what it means to be competitive. But I think kind of what Xiao's after too, and what I am interested in now is, so how do you maintain being competitive while not pushing away the people who just want to be there for fun? Like, I mean, it's a hard balance that even we struggle with, I think, and we're always working with what's the best way to do that, so that we're not leaving the recreational people behind, but we're also not impeding the competitive people's progress. How do you guys find that balance, and what do you guys like?
I think I think it's hard for a one crew team, right? Because you might have half a crew that's competitive and half a crew that's recreational, and then that's really hard to do to carry out appropriate practices on the water or like off the water and things like that. But with a team that's at least 2 crews strong, you can certainly separate the training regimen for each crew, both on the water and off the water, with multiple coaches and multiple workout plans and things like that. But I think what brings everything together is the ability to just have that team mindset at the end of the day. Like that's why we do a lot of things off the water, the social aspect, the community service aspect. Those are the times when people can come together. It doesn't matter what boat you're on or whatever, that's a time that you get to know the team and you get to, bond through that. Because, if you're always on the A boat and you're always on the B boat, you're not, mingling when you're on the water. So you take the advantage of the time that you have off the water to really build that relationship. And we always say, the people on the, A boat, they're the role models for the people on the B boat or the C boat or whatever it may be. And you just kind of instill that mindset into people so that this is for the whole team. Like, you're paddling not for one crew, you're paddling for the whole team. So I think, just, pounding home that concept and just continuing to, remind people of that, I think helps. Yeah.
Yeah, I think oftentimes, like when coming up with lesson plans or whatnot, we oftentimes go in mixed crews, right? So we just kind of put whoever on whatever boat. And, sometimes you'll hear like recreational paddlers like, oh, it's too hard. And then you'll hear like the really competitive paddlers like, oh, like that practice was like too easy, or like, so-and-so's hitting my paddle or things like that, right? Because they're new. And then I think that like for the recreational people, I always kind of like, it's like, go at your own pace, right? Because we never want to scare anyone away, right? You always want people to stay in the Dragon Boat community. And it's always good to have encouraging people. And I think from what Tony said earlier about how we kind of instill like the role model thing, right? Like our able paddlers oftentimes help out like new people. Like they'll call them out, or they'll just try and help them out, whether it's gently or just tell them like, oh, hey, try this instead, or like do this a little bit better. And then if I ever have like a able paddler come and say, I really don't want to paddle in mixed boats, I always kind of tell them, I have to say, if you want the team to get better, right, you need to be able to paddle with them, because that's the fastest way they're going to learn, right? If someone that's new, or like a recreational paddlers always paddle in a recreational boat, it takes them so much longer than if they were to be paddling with like competitive people, like people that really understand how to move the boat, how to move water. And so it's sort of like, I always say, you'll always lose people. It's a given, right? It's like, are you willing to build up the team so that there's someone to step into their place? And I think like most of the time, or almost every time that I said that to one of our able paddlers, they kind of see it in a different light. So that's kind of like the mentality that I think we both trying to like push.
Yeah, that's awesome. From a coach's standpoint, I wonder how you guys do that in terms of, it seems like the mission is really clear. Right? The mission is, let's get the team to be better. And sometimes we were going to have to make some personal sacrifices, right? And then, so do you guys say that out loud to the whole team in front of everyone, like at practice? Or is it a private conversation during practice with the A-boat? Or is it a individual, like, I'm going to text you and I'm going to always constantly check in with you and have these conversations? Or is it a combination of the above? How do you guys do it on the team?
I think we've never actually had to say that message in particular,
Yeah.
because people kind of like, just on the way that we coach, and like if someone ever, like, we try to be as open and transparent as possible. So we always tell people, if you have an issue or anything with us, or the way that we coach or anything like that, feel free to ask us, because like probably 99 out of every 100 times we'll have an answer for you of why we do something specifically. And so like, I've had individuals come up to me and be like, how come we do it this way? Like, shouldn't we always be in this boat? And I just say them the answer that I do, and they generally understand, and they're willing to help out. And I think the whole idea of the team is just to help everyone out and help everyone get better as a team. And I think a lot of people have pride in not only our A crew but our B and our C crew as well. So I think when you establish that, because I know I think some people, they just focus on their A crew, and then everyone's like, I just want to be on that one. But we always make it so that people are proud to be on all three of our crews, regardless of which one they're on.
So it sounds like just leading by example. Like certain things don't even have to be said. It's just like, I'm always gonna have everyone's backs. Like, I'm never gonna neglect these people, and as long as I have I lead by example, and I hold other people accountable to do the same thing. I don't even have to say it. That's cool.
Yeah, and I think from a leadership standpoint, we have to communicate with our paddlers, like really get to know them and understand what they want and what they don't want, or what their concerns are, and how to give them the best experience possible on our team. Because if we don't know, we can't tailor, our program or things that we do on our team to our paddlers, and that's the most important thing, I think, right? So by establishing that communication, that two-way communication, and opening, have an open door policy or whatever you want to call it, I think that just encourages people to just be a little bit more transparent, a little more open, and that just makes things easier, right?
Mhm.
So.
And I think just the relationship that coaches have with their paddlers is important because
yeah.
I think, especially for us, like I think our roster is like 70-ish people now. I think it's very easy for new people to kind of come on the boat and just kind of get lost in the sea of people. But I think when they realize that the coach is spending like extra time with them or like getting to know them a little better, it becomes like more of a relationship versus just, oh, I'm your coach for
Right.
this boat and you're just someone that's on this boat.
Seems like you guys at some point around 2010 was able to make that mental shift to like, hey, we want to be more competitive and we can, all that. In terms of training, like how did you guys start your trend up from 2010 in terms of like, did you guys change up your training or was it just training more?
A couple of our coaches started a little offshoot group called LGR Fitness, and that kind of started going back in 2010 through 2011 through, for a few years, and that included, additional track workouts, every Tuesdays, and additional, outdoor things like rock climbing and things like that. So I think it was more cross-training, I think more cross-training was introduced. We didn't just paddle 10 hours a day. We just introduced more different ways to, get stronger, be more mobile, more flexible, and things like that, that will ultimately transfer onto the water and transfer results, So I think, through LGR Fitness, through our land training program, some of our coaches came up with certain gym workouts and, lifting programs for us. I think just a combination of all that, plus, I think the drive and passion and desire of the people who wanted to be competitive really just kind of, all in combination created a more competitive environment. And once you get better results, people just keep going and keep going. And I think it doesn't happen overnight, but I think like I said, every team has their journey, and has their story. And I think ours was just, just that. I mean, it was humble beginnings, but certain people had a very clear vision, a clear mindset, and wanted to act upon it, and came up with ideas and implemented new things, and got the team on it, and then just kind of carried it on from there. I mean, the coaches can only do so much, right? Once they planted that seed into everyone's mind, it's up to them to be, self-motivated or motivate each other.
It wasn't like a 1-year plan, right? It was definitely like, I don't know how long it's going to take, but this is what I want to do. And, kind of looking back, like at the time as a dumb paddler, I was like, I don't know what's going on. I just listen to whatever they say.
Right.
But, looking back, they had a stroke in mind, right? And every year for the first maybe 4 years, we changed our stroke, drastically.
Yep.
Like one section of our stroke would change drastically. And it made us really adaptable, which was a good thing, but at the same time, because we're always learning something new, it kind of took a little bit of way of being able to perfect any one thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, once we finally kind of came to what our coaches wanted to settle into, like really comfortably and really hammer things down, I think that was when we really shot up a lot. But I think our coaches did understand that if we wanted to change anything, it can't happen overnight. And they spent a solid 3-4 years just modifying the stroke to exactly what they wanted. And they did a lot of research. I knew that they were talking almost on a daily basis about like how we should enter the water, how we should be pulling water, how we should be exiting, how we should be recovering, like every single part. And like sometimes I was trying to listen in on the conversations, and I would just get overwhelmed because like I was just in awe of all the different aspects that they would really think about in the stroke. And they came down to whatever made sense for our crew at the time. And I think since then we've always tried to make figure out what works for our crew every single year.
Yeah.
And That being said, I think the other big thing that kind of really helped was just setting a tone for those that want to be competitive. Our coaches really set forth, if you want to just paddle on our team, totally fine. Do as much as you want, have as much fun as you want. If you want more from it, talk to us, so we know we can kind of push you a little bit harder for this or that kind of thing. But more importantly, if you want to be on the A boat, these are what we like. This is what we expect from you, and setting those standards really kind of motivated people to okay, like I want to get on that boat. Especially I think coming from us, as newer people, was like, oh, I really want to do that, so I'm going to do as much as I can. I want to do all these things to really try to get onto that A boat. And then those people that were already on it, some people were already doing all that was, expected of them, but some people that may not have been were like, oh, this is what's expected of me. Like, I want my spot. I want to, like, make sure I do it. And more importantly, I want to make sure I don't let anyone down by not doing it, and still being on the boat. Like, so I think those two things really helped kind of bring, at least from like our coaches, it really pushed, I think, Ripple to like the next level in terms of competitive attitude.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know a lot of teams in CDBA, but also down in SoCal, I think, aren't doing as well as they used to. A lot of teams are sort of downsizing and all that stuff, and I oftentimes hear when that happens, like, oh, we can't get enough people to come to practice, or like people are just not motivated and all that stuff. And I know for sure parts of those things are real, right? There are some times where you really just people, like you guys said, people are getting married and things like that, and you really can't get people to come to practice. But it really sounds like your coaches didn't focus on that and was just like focused on actionable, like, okay, so even if this is how many people that we have. Okay, how can we leverage every single one of them? If 30 people come out of practice, how can I leverage every single one of them? From the brand new paddler all the way to the top notch person. How do I leverage every single one of them? And then with that said, also like really perfecting the stroke, knowing that it's a long-term thing. Like maybe I perfect the exit to this year, then I do the recovery next year, then I do the entry and so forth, and then just. It sounded like fitness had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
So you guys got to this like really competitive place with your team, and not only that, but you guys have always relied on the 3 pillars that you were talking about earlier. And so somewhere along the line, though, you guys kind of probably realized that Worlds was a really achievable goal for you. And I'm just really curious to hear that story. Like, when you guys really start to decide, let's train for Worlds, let's see what we can do, and then once you guys got there, how was that experience?
Yeah. I think it all started in 2013. So 2013 was when we finally realized, a lot of our goals. Like we finally achieved a lot of our goals. That was the first year that we won the regatta in May. So that coming off of that, a lot of momentum, and sprints. So that year, the Club Crew World qualifiers were in Oakland, and the coaching staff at the time, or Nate and Aaron, they were like, okay, why don't we, give it a try? I mean, it's local, and if anything, it's a good benchmark for us to, set ourselves against, and if anything, it's an extra race so that we can get ready for TI and further, right? It was a great experience to kind of like open our eyes to, the competition level on the West Coast is pretty high, right? So we kind of carried forward after that, and did well at TI, and then 2014 came along, and we had another great year. It was after TI of 2014, we finished the best we've ever done, as a team that year. And I was talking to some people, and I had certain things in my mind, and I was like, hey, remember last year when we tried to qualify for Worlds? World qualifiers are coming up in 2015, we just came off of a really good year. Let's see who's interested. Yeah, let's kind of go pitch the idea and see who's interested. So I think in November of 2014, we sent out an email to the team saying, hey, we're thinking about this. Let's have a meeting at the lake just to kind of talk about what's expected of this and who's interested and what level of commitment and discipline will be necessary to get to that level. And we had a pretty good showing at that meeting, and people heard us out, just kind of listened to what we had to say. It sank in for a little bit, and then, got enough people interested to sign up for this and kind of hit the ground running at the beginning of 2015, like January, February timeframe, adding an extra practice, just for those that are interested in the Club Crew World Qualifiers. It wasn't easy. I remember our first practice, we added a 7 a.m. practice, like a 7 a.m. time slot.
Yeah.
It was the first weekend of February. We looked at the temperature gauge in our cars. It was 41 degrees.
Holy.
The sun wasn't even up yet at 7 o'clock at the time. But we had, 16, 18 people out, with their PFDs on,
Shivering.
Shivering, getting ready to
Except
go.
for Eddie with his jacket.
That part comes in handy.
Yeah, it does. Comes in very handy.
Yeah, so you guys had a good showing even for the first practice,
Yeah.
even though it was so cold.
Even though it was so cold.
They probably didn't know. That's
Yeah,
why.
I know.
And then after that, they're like,
the
"All right,
next
I'm
week,
out." And
no,
then you
straight up,
guys-
no, just kidding.
No.
No, I think it just started that way, and then, I think at the end of the day, just keeping your eyes on the prize is very key. Like being focused on what's our end goal, right? We set benchmarks for ourselves. Every month, let's try to hit this. Let's try to hit this, and kind of gauge ourselves based off of that. And I gotta tell you, and Eddie can kind of attest, it was not easy at all. People, certain people who were interested, lost interest, or they got busy, or they said, it's maybe not for me, or something like that. And but then along the same time, certain people hopped on as well. So it was a lot of ups and downs, highs and lows, certain months we would not hit our benchmarks, and certain months we're like, we don't have enough people. Like, we can't do it, because, we saw how CAU did, and it was very inspirational, right? Placing very high, in the races up in Italy, and we're like, we know how hard they train. We gotta train just as hard, if not harder. Even though, during times when we were getting closer and closer to, August 1st. August 1st was the date of the qualifiers. Getting closer and closer, and we still didn't have a full boat, or we only had, half the boat out on 7 a.m. practices. But, if you really believe in something, and you have a core group of people that can drive this change, you can make it happen, right? And even if you don't make it at the end of the day, you can at least say that we went down trying as hard as we can.
Like, definitely there were a lot of times where I was just like, we need more than enough people. We can't just have 20 paddlers. We need extra people, because people will drop out. And it was an interesting numbers game, watching it kind of fluctuate. And like Tony and I, I'm sure we both had a lot of sleepless nights leading up to that qualifiers. It was like, we're still missing someone, because something just comes up and someone can't go. Like work gets in the way, life gets in the way, and it was really stressful for us, because we wanted to adhere like best we could to Club Crew rules. I know there are some people that are just like, oh, as long as they come and paddle with you at summer times or whatever, they're part of your team. But we wanted everyone on our crew to have at least raced with us before, or like they're actually ripple effect, members. And we were able to accomplish that. And like Tony said, it was one of those times where you just have to drive and believe. And Tony's definitely the more optimistic between the two of us. And I relied on him heavily for his optimism a lot during that time, because a lot of times I was just like, I don't know. I'm not gonna say anything, but I don't know. And then when we were able to finally pull everything through, and I think going to Portland was probably one of the best races that we've done. Not just being at a world-class race like that, but really bringing people together. Because you can oftentimes go to an away race, but whenever we go to an away race, we tend to try to mix in like fun, like let's go pig out at this restaurant, or let's go eat ice cream and dessert everywhere. But you know, we went there like solidly.
Yeah, that was all.
right?
That was like 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, because I mean, we totally do that, like especially in Vancouver, right?
Yeah, we totally
But
do.
when we was at Portland, we went and we knew exactly what we were gonna do. And I'm not saying we didn't have fun. We went out to like ice cream places and stuff like that too. But you know, for those 2 days, everyone that was there, we were there for a solid purpose. You knew what you're going for. You're not here to paddle for fun. You're here to perform at the best possible, you know, like level that you personally can. And it really brought a lot of those people together. And I think that crew, like I always say at every race, you know, be glad to race with this crew because you may never race with this crew ever again. And you know, that was one of those times. Like that crew, you know, we'll never race in that crew again. But at the same time, you know, I think the friendships that you build and the bonds that you build with people are those things that are a little bit more unbreakable.
Yeah. And I think, you know, leading up to the qualifiers, you know, getting everyone in the right mindset, right? I mean, I think that's the most important thing. You know, we trained really hard, you know, on the water, off the water, but having that chemistry in that crew, because we paddled so much together and we hung out so much and stuff like that, and we spent so much time together, having that same mindset is really crucial. And, you know, one of the things that I, you know, really pushed hard was, what does Club Crew World Championships mean to you, right? Pose that question to people. And to me, you know, our sport, Dragon Boat, it's not in the Olympics, right? But we do have a World Championships, right? That's the highest level of our sport. Think about it. What other sport that allows people like you and me, like not professionals, you know, not people who get endorsements and sponsors and all that stuff.
Oh, you guys are sponsored.
We'll get to that later. But in what sport, you know, can, you know, average people like us who just work hard and you know, train hard, can make it to the highest level of that sport? You equate it to the Super Bowl of football, the Stanley Cup of NHL, NBA Finals, the World Cup of soccer. You know, those are the things that we're going for. That's what CCWC is for our sport. So being lucky enough to be in a sport where it allows you to do that, you know, is so lucky, right? I mean, if you were, you know, just you know, a basketball player, football player, you know, at the local gym or whatever, or like at your local, even at your local high school team or basketball, I mean, your college team, you may not make it to the NBA finals, right? I mean, only a very select few make it. So I think carrying that mindset and seeing how important it is and how prideful we are of being in our sport, I think really hit home. So I think, you know, that's something that I'm proud of, and I'm proud of to be in this sport, and something that I hope, you know, people realize, you know, that anyone can really do it. Yeah.
Yeah, when we were talking to Alex Yu a couple of weeks ago, he also shared the sentiment of like, he had this grand vision of let's go to Italy, let's go compete, but all the way up until the week before they went off to Italy, he was doubting it. And like when we first asked him like, hey, how did you do it? He was like, dude, you know what? To this day, I don't know how we pulled it off. But yet, you know, from the outside, it looks like a successful program, but from the inside, it's really stressful. And something that he said was, you know, if you want to compete on the world level, you don't know whether you're going to get there, right? And if you are someone who needs to know that you are going to get it in order to start, you have no business in it, right? Like, you have to be able to be willing to risk going out to practice for 3 months, or for 3 years for them and for a whole year for you guys. You have to be willing to risk putting in all that time and not getting anything in return. And that's such a different mindset than I want to just go out, you know, on weekends and on my off time and whatnot.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So now that you guys have gone, like, what are some things that you guys took away from that race, and how are you guys going to move forward from here?
I think actually going to Worlds, I guess we've just been talking about qualifiers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to the
I think for us, it was probably, I mean, we already had a hard time filling up a full boat. So, like, story-wise, we didn't place first, right? So we didn't make it, but we were lucky enough to get a bid, like the wild card bid, basically, to represent U.S. because like another team didn't go or something like that. And there was this time in between, like after Treasure Island race and before we found a bid, I was kind of like, woo, we can rest a little bit right now, like, we can go back down. And, in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, I'm relieved that everything's happened. And then this guy calls me one day, and
this was 2 weeks after TI.
TI.
Oh
right?
my god.
he calls me and he's like, hey, you check your email yet? And I'm like, no, I've been out all day. And he goes, we made it. It's like, we made what? Right? It's like,
TI's over, dude.
Yeah, we got the what? I was like,
We got the
like,
bid.
like literally,
It's crazy.
I was in my house and I was jumping up and down in circles. And then as soon as that died down, I was like, oh, it's gonna be a lot of work. Right? And we pretty much like kind of started off how the exact same way that we started off with qualifiers. We got everyone together and said, this is what we're gonna expect. This is what we're gonna do. How many people can commit? And we had our struggles again. We had enough people that committed early, and then when we finally got we're about to get there, we still were running short on people. And then in the end, we went there with a couple of alternates as well. So that was really great.
Awesome. To the race, it was very big, grand environment. Like just standing there at opening ceremony, all these teams holding their flags, their banners, their team banners, and walking through the opening ceremony, having your name called, it's just something else. Like you're just so proud, just to be a part of your team and the crew that you're with, the people that you're with, and then you'd never forget that. Never ever forget that. Another thing that I think really positive coming out of the Club Crew World Championships is the exposure. We just started our Instagram right around then, like right before Club Crew World Championships, and I think it was perfect timing because we were able to capture a lot of moments, and then connect with a lot of teams that had Instagram, and then other teams started new Instagrams, and then I think now you guys have a really active Instagram. I think it really does help publicize the sport, not just locally but internationally. Like you can see how big the sport is, and that the things that you do may inspire other teams around the world.
I guess what's next, right? Like, you guys got to Worlds, performed there.
I think from my standpoint, I think going into Worlds, there's this, I had a fear of like the team kind of falling apart because, we've seen it happen with a bunch of different teams before, and like coming back, it was like, oh no, like what's our regatta crew gonna look like? Because it was literally, we came back and it was like a month, right?
Yeah,
it was literally
less than a month.
And so we basically were like, do we have time to rest? How much do you want regatta? So no, we had no time to rest. And I'm always very cognizant of burnout, right? Like I think I don't want people just kind of leaving, or I think one of those messages like going into Club Crew was, this isn't your swan song, right? I think a lot of people are like, well, we've done the best, we've been into the best race that we possibly could, so I might as well end now. And we wanted to, I think, and like kind of imbue a message of everyone is part of this team that's pushing and will always be pushing regardless of whether we race at Worlds or we race locally or we race at any away race. And you're always going to be part of this team, and Worlds is important, but to me it's not as important as the longevity of ripple effect. And so now it's sort of like, yeah, some people are tired, and yeah, some people back it down a bit, and that's totally okay. I think it's totally okay. And I think we've actually, now that we have like a little bit of a longer break between Long Beach and Lake Merritt, we've kind of established a couple things to kind of like rest people a little bit. We're going a little bit lighter, more technique-based workouts, and we're doing a retreat this weekend so that people can still bond and get a little bit of activity, but less on dragon boats. And so I think it was kind of like hopefully everyone will be rejuvenated after this, and then so we can go hard leading up to Lake Merritt.
And then from my standpoint, like Eddie said earlier, I'm always the more optimistic one. And what I got out of Club Crew World Championships was, a lot of momentum, a lot of, positive thoughts, that crew was so close. Like, we cared for each other so much. We accomplished so much together. Why can't we do more? One of the things that we're really looking forward to is our new sponsorship with the local gym called Fitness Therapy in Daly City. They're providing us with a lot of resources, equipment, training sessions and things like that, that could hopefully, continue to expand our, fitness potential and push that bar even farther, and, have people, get stronger. And, one thing that we didn't mention about, our team in the past year or so is that we've established a fitness staff on our team, and their sole, role is to come up with programs and lead land training sessions and things like that on a weekly basis, so that they have familiar faces to, associate fitness with. And, having that resource, giving our paddlers that, resource within the team to do that, gives them that opportunity to do it in the team, bring it to their own workouts off the water, and, continue that way. Again, raising the bar. We bought a lot of equipment to, make our land trainings more difficult. And, I think that's the thing about, our team, and any team in the sport, we can't stay complacent, right? Yeah, we made it to, Club Crew World Championships, now what? Well, you gotta keep going and keep innovating, right? Keep pushing at a certain level, right? I mean, not blindly, obviously. You can't just like keep throwing things at people, and but doing it methodically, thinking it out and doing it with a good vision, with a good plan and a good direction, I think is really important. So I think that's where we are today, continuing to think of new things and continuing to provide the resources that will make the experience on Ripple Effect the best ones for our paddlers.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I guess as you're thinking here, I just want to say I've been very inspired by your story, and I've always had a lot of respect for your team, just from the outside looking, from the outside looking at you guys, and it just shows like what hard work can do, and all the time and effort that was really put into it from the coaching staff and everyone else on your team, and keep continuing to represent the CDBA well.
Thanks. Yeah.
Really try.
Yeah, and props to you guys too. I mean, you guys do the same, and we're inspired, and we're grateful to have Dragon Warriors in the CDBA to continue to enrich the Dragon Boat community in California and the Bay Area, and just doing all the things you guys do. Yeah, keep it up.
Yeah, I remember talking to Shao a little bit about. I was a little bit concerned about you guys for a while, but I'm really glad that you guys are like on the upswing, and like pushing hard. You guys are looking really solid.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Eddie, and thank you, Tony, for coming out and having this chat with us. Hopefully you guys got a lot out of it. Brian and I definitely feel really inspired by their journey. Just being, starting dragon boating from 2010 and now becoming head coach and a coach and team manager for your team, and being one of the top CDBA teams as well at that. So hopefully you guys got something out of it. And like our video, subscribe to our channel, check out our website at www.paddlersareyourready.wordpress.com. Share our video, share everything on your Facebook, on Instagram. See you guys next week.
Later.
Bye.